Welcome back to the tip of the iceberg. In this podcast, we're talking about STEM. That's science, technology, engineering and maths. And I'll be talking with Steve Gill, Lisa-Jayne Cook and Sam Buckell about the different types of initiatives that are going on in the refrigeration, air conditioning and heat pump sector to get a broader range of people involved in our work. We recorded this event during International Women in Engineering Day, and we'll talk about all sorts of different things, career opportunities, and how sharing stories and celebrating success can make a big difference. We're looking a little bit more about the role of women in the industry and what we can do to support them. So to start with, let's just talk a little bit about STEM, if anyone's new to that whole concept of STEM. And what we're trying to do with this network is improve awareness of the careers that our industry can offer. I'm sure you're all aware that women tend to not choose engineering careers. There's no real reason for that. It's just historical. So we're trying to change perceptions and make people realize it's a great career opportunity for people, not just those working in engineering roles, but in any role, really, lots of different opportunities. We're doing this trying to start early by going into schools and encouraging people to get that confidence to go into schools and talk about their work, their careers and the opportunities, giving them resources and pointing in the direction of organizations that can guide them through. In this network, what we're doing is improving awareness of the kind of things you can do, getting members to share their experiences, their activities, their resources, and also trying to encourage more people to sign up as STEM ambassadors, so we have a network of people that you can call on whenever an opportunity arises to talk to schools. So let's look at a little bit about women in RACHP. According to Engineering UK, women make up 16.5% of all engineers, and that is a good figure apparently because it has increased from 10.5% last time they did their survey in 2010. But with women, of course, making up about half of the population generally in the UK, it's still not as good as it could be. So we have a lot still to do, to continue to do, but it's great to know that there is a trend that is quite positive. It says that the role of women in engineering roles is increasing, even though the total number of people working in engineering fell during the pandemic. So there is definitely a positive trend, and we should be really quite pleased of ourselves. I think our members who are working to promote the careers for women in the industry of the kind of progress that's being made when everybody in all the different engineering sectors working together, doing things like promoting women in engineering, the International Women in Engineering Day. There's a new network that we'll talk about from the international group that's supported by UNEP, and also celebrating International Women in Engineering Day, which is today. In terms of the Institute of Refrigeration, what we understand about refrigeration, air conditioning, heat pumps, there was a survey carried out in 2020, and we found that one of the stats there was just 2% of senior leadership positions held by females. So really our position as the IOR is that, that we know that there's a skill shortage. We need people, both men and women. So we really want to encourage women to see this as a career to help us address the skills that are needed. So first thing, women make good engineers. There is old-fashioned thinking about women don't want to work in engineering because it's dirty, or it's working outside, or you're in a van all day, or there are child rearing issues. These are really out of date ways of looking at things. We've got lots of examples now of women having really successful careers, of being able to do these jobs, and there really is no barrier to women taking on a career in engineering, and we need to get that message across. So what kind of things can businesses do? Well, we are already doing all these sorts of things. We are getting a lot of STEM ambassadors, our female engineers, and women working in the industry in non-engineering roles. We've got lots of support for women in engineering through the STEMazing programs. And as a business, if you are doing any advertising, any promotion, make sure you've got a gender balance of the people in your advertisements. We need to increase that visibility of women in professional engineering roles and showing the kind of work they do. Some other ideas for you is to celebrate the success of the women working in your business. When women win awards for lifetime achievements or achievements through the top women in engineering, we're getting a lot of coverage, particularly in the refrigeration sector, for these awards. So make sure you do make a good shout out for their work in this area, and take part in all these kind of initiatives, all these networks that can support women's careers and show that this industry has a lot to offer. We have some guidance in the Institute of Refrigeration to help you if you want to get started talking to schools. There are ideas about working with schools, what works well, how to become a STEM ambassador, and a little bit about the STEMazing program. There is information about the Institute's Fantastic Fridges website, which is an interactive website. It's got lots of stuff that you can use if you're talking to schools. We have a video called Careers in Cooling, which features lots of different people in different roles, including a number of female engineers and people working in admin roles as well. So a whole mixture of people. There are some really good examples that you can look at there. And our most recent guidance note was looking at work experience placements, and that was to get put together by colleagues at SureSol with a female apprentice helped put that together. So I always say that there may not be many women in our sector, but the women who are here punch above their weight. We're making a really great impression and making things happen. So really, that was all that I wanted to say as an introduction, and I would hand over to you. We've got Steve Gill from the World Refrigeration, and we've got Lisa-Jayne Cook and Sam Buckell, both involved in the IOR Women in Refrigeration Network. So guys, some of you guys have just come off of a podcast all about women in engineering. So any other advice you have for employers about how to attract more female engineers and what they can do? Does Sam or Lisa-Jayne want to say anything?
It's Sam.
Yeah, sure.
Hiya. With regards to the question, how do you attract more females? I think it depends. I could be wrong, but it depends what time you are in life. So different times in my life, I've been interested in different things. So if it's just females rather than engineers, I would say that, well, like anybody really, I suppose, in fact, that at different times in your life, there will be different benefits that appeal to you in your 20s that perhaps wouldn't in your 50s. And I just think benefits is becoming more and more important. So yeah, that's what came to mind. I just thought I'd mention it. I know this is STEM, and I know it's not something that comes up, but I think it's quite relevant. So yes, if somebody is younger and you're offering to pay for their training, that's going to be a huge attraction to somebody perhaps who's younger. Not always, it could be an attraction to anyone, but I think that will be appealing, especially nowadays, and apprenticeships and stuff. But I think benefits is of huge importance as well. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to what you're saying about training, the fact that we have a really strong apprenticeship scheme, that there are colleges that take on apprentices, is something to be really we can shout about. I've been talking to some apprentices recently, and they're saying that they chose an apprenticeship career because it was a structured education. It would give them great fundamentals to build a career on, and it would give them a place to start at the bottom and work all the way through, because they'd have a really, really good idea of what's involved, and it would give them opportunities to go into different areas in their career. I certainly hear more and more female apprentices are coming through the system now, so there's lots of progress being made there. I would see that as a benefit of this industry, is that there's a good training and careers. Is there anything else you want to add, Sam?
I'd agree with that 100% as well, Miriam.
Thank you. Lisa-Jayne, I think you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, so I know I keep saying that we keep saying this, but role models. So people need to see that there are opportunities. So if you've got young women already in the business, and they don't necessarily have to be in a technical role, but succeeding in the role and enjoying the job that they do, as long as they're happy to do, put them in the spotlight, ask them to share a little bit about their journey, share the things that they're really passionate about within the role. And then other young women will see that, and that will help them to realise that there is an opportunity for them. So we always keep coming back to this role models, but I do think it's really important.
Yeah, I think that's true. If I think I was looking at some YouTube videos when I was putting this together, and they were saying that sometimes when people think about, when someone asks picture an engineer, and the automatic picture that comes into many people's minds is a man in a hard hat. So trying to get round that idea, because in many other professions, if you talk about nursing and things like that, it's quite gender neutral. So I think there's a lot of work to do to reverse that general perception. And if we can start early showing kids at school that, it's not a man's job, it's a job for anybody, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely there that we do need to start showing people that, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, there's a job for you in the industry.
You and Sam, who are both on the STEM program, so you're going out to schools or doing web talks showing it's a sector that does welcome women.
Yeah, and we were discussing this earlier as well. We really enjoy doing that. So if anybody's thinking about doing it, it's really rewarding. So I definitely urge you to give it a go.
And also, Lisa-Jayne, were you on the International Women in Cooling group as well? Is that something you've got involved in? Did they have a meeting recently, didn't they?
They did, yes. We had our first board meeting. So it was more about just getting to know each other and sort of setting the tone for the future meetings and agreeing on how those meetings would be conducted. But even just that first meeting was really quite an eye-opener, because there are a lot of women around the world doing the same roles as us in the industry, but we haven't really sort of connected those dots before. So, you know, we're in quite a unique place now, aren't we, that every day there's more and more women. And Steve and World Refrigeration Day, they've actually put a post out today with all those faces on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've seen it, but that to me is just incredible, because I never thought we'd be at the point where there were so many of us that have actually stood up and said, hey, we're working in this field. And for Steve to be able to actually collate those faces and make a picture that broad.
And that's a global thing as well. So it's not just something that's happening in the UK. You know, there's lots we can learn from the, I think there's an American association that's been running for several years that is really, really active in this. And we're hoping we'll learn from a lot more from other organizations. Steve, are you available to say anything about the international group?
Yes, I'm here. Before we talk about the InWeek, just to echo what's already been said, visibility, I think, plays a huge part. It's very difficult to think about a career or stepping into a career that you don't fit into. So having the women, and the women are there. There are lots of women in the industry doing really great work. So just increasing the visibility that you're doing and having the role models such as Lisa-Jayne and Jacinta and all the other wonderful ones that are involved in the IOR and above. And working on the unconscious bias. People, even I have a perception of what an engineer is. And I think we just have to work around that and talk more about, particularly to young children, about what the job actually entails, what the exciting things that we do. I think it's exciting. You know, we feed the population, we deliver vaccines. You and I both know what these things do. But if you wrap it up with the title engineer, it sort of gets labelled and lost a little bit. So I think concentrate on what we do more than the label attached to being an engineer. And I suppose the third aspect is the influencers. We really must work on the influence. We dip in and out of schools and training facilities, the young people, and through social media. But we really need to work on the teachers, the parents, even ourselves, if we are parents ourselves, because we influence so many of those around us. A lot of the research shows that people that go into engineering, their parents or have a relative in engineering already. So that would instantly sort of double the next generation if we could keep that going. So there's a lot of work with influence to work on, and it's having all that materials and out there to support them, and awareness. And Sam's point about, I can't remember how she put it, but one of the presentations I gave a long time ago, I actually put up my pay slip on the slide, and I had a lot of interest afterwards, more than the rest of the people in the room. That we also give them careers fair, because yes, money does attract a lot of us. Some of us in the industry are fairly well paid. Let's put it that way. It's not a poor industry by any respect.
No, that really echoes what sometimes a couple of these meetings we've had Ian Fisher come on, and he said he goes to the careers fairs and talks to them and says any questions, and invariably somebody puts up their hand and said, how much money do you earn? So it is a driver, because people want to know, is it a good career? And that's reflected not just in the value to society, and the interest in the training, but at the end of the day, everyone wants to make a living and see that there's opportunity. So the fact that you can go through an apprenticeship and then all the way up into being a business leader, such as yourself, Steve, and earn a good living is a really something.
Absolutely. Last week was something called Social Mobility Awareness Day, and that's something that's an industry we don't really talk about or aware of. I know many, and you probably do as well, who have started not from the best backgrounds and well educated, to put it mildly, but have now become industry leaders just on merit. And I think that is something else we can work upon. We are not restrictive in the ways that some industries are.
Yeah, there's so many misperceptions about engineering. It seems to be either you have to have like a gazillion degrees and PhDs in order to do something, and the other one is that you are just running around in a van with a screwdriver. Some people they think that you're just fixing fridges or installing fridges in people's homes, and other people think it's beyond them, out of their reach because it's too academic. So trying to make people realize that, I know lots of people in this industry who didn't do well at school. They just didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't their sort of thing. But when they knew that they liked doing practical work and hands-on work, they liked finding out how things work, or they even started, I was listening to Gemma Weston, who won the one of the awards for the top student recently, and she said she started off doing a hairdressing apprenticeship and it was boring. So she's a practical person. She wants to find out how things work, and she got involved in air conditioning and now industrial refrigeration. So the opportunities are there for people from all walks of life.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been doing for World Refrigeration, as you may have seen, is sharing stories as opposed to the usual CVs. It's nice to see a CV where you went to university, you got a degree, you became a manager, etc. But to hear the stories, and you mentioned Gemma, I won't mention another name, but there's quite a few on there who've started from quite strange backgrounds, unusual backgrounds, working in a pub or walking a dog or all sorts of things. And all of a sudden they've ended up with very successful careers.
I was actually speaking to somebody in the week who is it's a male apprentice, but he said he did an apprenticeship in greenkeeping in a golf course. And he got speaking to some of the golfers about what they do, and they worked for a refrigeration company, and he retrained because it sounded more interesting.
One of the stories was the person who heads up Woolworths supermarkets in Australia. He was working in some and just fell out with his employer and crossed the road, and there was a refrigeration company, and he just applied for the job there. That's how he got into it. It was as random as that, but he's never looked back. So it's really quite interesting, the openings. I just talk about INWIC just very briefly. I think, again, Lisa-Jayne mentioned that, and you've mentioned that. Yes, the IOR is one of the founding partners of that network. We've connected up a number of the leading associations around the world who have women's networks and groups. And it's to exchange information and ways of working, all the things, the success stories, what works, what doesn't, and really, the strengthening numbers. I think that we can learn a lot from each other. And you mentioned the women in HVACR, the American network, who've been going for 20 years. In fact, they're looking at us and they say, wow, there's a lot we can learn from you. So it's really quite interesting to see this synergy. And I think it's a cliche, but we are stronger together. I think that applies. It's really exciting.
If you look at it individually, it seems too big and too difficult. But then, as you say, if we work together, there's an opportunity there to build on everyone else's success and see, hopefully, over our careers, see changes happening. And I'm seeing that over my career in the sector, changes in perceptions. There were just no female engineers at the colleges when I used to go out and visit when I first started, and now we're just starting to see those numbers coming through, and it takes one or two, and then others see that the possibility is there, and it snowballs from there. So hopefully there's lots of opportunities for people in the future, and they can see that as we do this work to promote it, and of course the important work that World Refrigeration Day is doing to promote the sector generally. So thanks everyone for your input to this podcast. Thanks Steve, Lisa-Jayne and Sam and everyone listening in. In the description of this episode, I'll put some links to some of the initiatives we've been discussing, and I hope that everyone can find some inspiration there, and you can share your stories about refrigeration, how you got into the industry and the great career it's offered you, and help us to continue to attract the best people and get the best skills in our sector for the future. Thanks everyone. This was the tip of the iceberg from the Institute of Refrigeration, and I'm Miriam Rodway. We hope you're enjoying our podcasts. Please like and share and follow the podcast and join us on the next edition. Thank you.